Start recording. All right, three, two, and one. All right, and welcome back to the Reserve Squad Midweek Show. I'm your host Ben, and I'm in a little bit better mood than last week. One could even say I'm on cloud nine. No,
Ooh,
but no, I was having a lot of fun this Saturday, and then in about really 10 minutes, a guy named Holland kind of killed my metaphorical high. Anyways, I'm pleased to be joined also by my co-host Rex, who I think also went through a bit of a mind warp himself with Gabrielle. So
yeah,
maybe it went from cursing him to singing singing a song in his honor. So yeah, good to see you again, man.
that's right. Good to be back, and it was a bit of a roller coaster weekend, which is just how we like it. And man, who would have thought 9 goals for Liverpool and Salah didn't get an assist or a goal? That was
Yeah.
kind of strange too. But we'll get into it, man. I'm excited. That's a crazy scoreline. There were a couple scorelines like that across the league. I think. Yeah, I think UPS had been on our text group. The Celtic one 9-0, and then there was another
Yeah.
7-0 in the Bundesliga, I think. So it's a wild, wild weekend.
And so I guess we'll kind of do what we've done. We'll get started with a headline of the week, and then just kind of quickly go into the games. And it's good we're getting the show on today because they turn around and play this today and tomorrow, so they have a
Mhm.
quick week ahead of them. So I don't know how we're going to do next week's show. We'll have to cover 2 games for each team. But anyways, yeah, I mean there was a wild weekend. You can go with the Holland hat trick, Liverpool scoring nine. Gerard again, kind of slipping on a banana pill. But I'm gonna go with maybe the transfer deadline coming up because we're starting to really see some late moves still, and maybe there's still some surprises left. So what are you thinking, Rex?
Yeah, I think that there will be a couple signings. I hope. We're coming what we got, like 2 days, so
Yeah,
we're
I think
coming
so.
down to the wire. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, Liverpool maybe a midfielder. Arsenal maybe like another midfielder or wide player. Maybe Asensio or Stiletto is what I'm thinking. But I
Asensio.
guess the headline for me was the 9-0, Liverpool's first win, and just really emphatic. And I mean, Bournemouth too. It basically caused them to fire Sky Parker. So kind of we'll get into that too, whether or not we think that's fair. But I think that game is my headline game of the weekend. Maybe I agree too with the Holland quick hat trick, and he's already paying dividends. We were asking the question, how different would City be with a real proper striker up top? And I mean, he put the team on his back there, and like you said, 10 minutes basically, and got him the win again. So I don't know, but still not playing, pep football like we've seen. I know he's going to be disappointed about getting all those goals up. But yeah, I think Liverpool scoring 9. It's a football score.
Yeah, I mean, you even like texted in the group chat, "What's happening with City?" And before I could even like enjoy it, because I was like, "Oh, Liverpool might get 10," and then I looked down and I was like, I can't even be happy about this now." Um, but I think we'll get started with Liverpool and Bournemouth. As you said, they do win 9-0. Uh, I was expecting a bit of a bounce back, but not necessarily this. Fabinho was
Mhm.
back in the lineup. Henderson was tried on the left, which was a little different, and then Elliott on the right side. So it was a different lineup than we saw versus United. And I'm going to get into it later. I think the shape changed from a 4-3-3 we normally see to really a 4-2-3-1 with Henderson and Fabinho in kind of like a double pivot. With Salah kind of the front man, but not really. He was also doing with on the right side. But I think you saw Firmino. Firmino was a little bit more effective because you saw him instead of him being asked to like lead the line when he places a false nine. I mean, he was still doing what he does normally for length of play and playing in midfield. But in this case, anytime he looked up, there's Diaz ahead of him or Salah, which I think helped
Mhm.
out as well. But
Oh
you
yeah.
know, goals from Diaz. I mean, it got started early. Just 2 minutes, Diaz header, um, and then Elliott got one. They got the second one again. I think within the 6 minutes with a long shot, and then Trent, basically copied him with a long shot as well. We haven't necessarily seen that either, outside of like the Diaz strike from Crystal Palace, and then really they just kind of touted on. Firmino got two, and Fabio Carvalho finally got his first goal. So
Yeah.
I mean, the XG was only three. So a lot of these were not necessarily high opportunity chances. Uh, but I mean, we'll just kind of get started here. I mean, what were your first thoughts, Rex?
Yeah, like I said, I was shocked, honestly. I mean, it's just not 9 goals, and Bournemouth didn't really even like. I mean, they didn't show up for this game, so like, I understand why Scott Parker was fired after this, and the fact that since the first game they hadn't scored, which is definitely a concern. But I mean, I was just happy to see. I really was happy to see Harvey Elliott score a goal because I think he's been pretty bright recently. Last week too in the loss, I thought Harvey Elliott was really direct at least
Hmm.
and had a couple shots. And then I'm excited Carvalho scored too. I think he's a really good player, and I think he can have a big role with Liverpool. And first goal for the team since he came from Fulham, and I'm excited to see him more. Um, and I mean, he's got a lot of talent. I think he can do well. He's really athletic too. If you watch him play, like super fast and speedy guy.
Hmm.
So I was happy for him and happy for Harvey to get a goal. And Trent Alexander-Arnold too, taking a little bit of stick recently in the beginning of the season.
Hmm.
For not being a proper defender or whatever. But I was happy to see him score too, and that was a rocket shot outside the box.
Yeah, and I'll get into Twin a little bit later because I've also been kind of maybe too harsh on him. Just not even without the goal. Like his offensive numbers were much better. I think he lost the ball 19
Mhm.
times, but he touched it like 135.
Ooh.
So
So
I mean,
yeah,
it's,
okay,
he's
not
been
yeah.
given such a different role than what a normal fullback is, which I think
Mhm.
people need to take in mind too. Like he's not like Reece James. He's not a wing back. He still has to track back, especially when he doesn't
Yeah,
have someone like Kanate back there. But what's kind of funny is it's a game between Liverpool and Bournemouth, and I couldn't help but think, how did Steven Gerrard's Villa team lose to this team? Which I
yeah.
think might have might be hurting Gerard right now too. But
Mhm.
another thing too is Liverpool scored 9, and that is the headline. But backstory into this game was a little interesting because basically the day before the game, Klopp came out and reversed himself, saying, "No, actually, we do want a midfielder in. I was wrong." And basically said, "You, the fans or whatever, the critics, were right." And what's weird is he said this knowing that the owner, John Henry, was coming to visit, and he was in the stands that day. And maybe I don't know if that was like a head fake or not because he would have been booed beyond belief, being there, and instead he was kind of celebrated. But things have maybe changed since then, and so I am still a little bit worried. So it's weird to say you're worried after a 9-0, but all the issues in midfield for me are still a concern. Now they do have Curtis Jones coming back. He'll now be fit, so maybe at least you'll have an option other than Milner to play. Because I'm actually starting to think Milner's maybe the issue, not necessarily Henderson. Uh,
Yeah.
but but that
Yeah, I
said,
would agree with that.
I think it's interesting that Klopp has recognized to not play Henderson on the right. We've now seen 2 games. We saw it versus United. He played in the middle, and this time he played a bit on the left, and it was a different role. And so I'm I don't know if I'm reading into that or not, but it seems there is something there where Klopp recognizes Henderson's not the right attacking mid anymore. He doesn't necessarily have the engine, and he's not good in the final third. So,
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
and frankly, I guess one thing to maybe be positive is there is news that Jota might finally be back, and I mentioned that there was maybe a formation change in this game. I'm wondering going forward if the idea is to have like a Thiago and Fabinho pivot, or like a Henderson and Fabinho pivot. We only have 2 in midfield, and you basically play with 4 attackers,
Mhm.
and it would be Jota and Darren as like the strikers, with like Salah and Diaz kind of like they would provide the width outside, but they can also play inside. They can cut
Yeah,
inside.
you can cut in.
So you'd
Mhm.
really you could just loop balls in there, and maybe you can get a second ball in a box and kind of cause chaos that way. It wouldn't be pretty, but I think that would
Mhm.
lead to goals. And other than that, I don't see what you can do with the midfield situation because I do think they're a body short, to be honest. So
Mhm. But if Thiago comes back and can stay healthy, it would probably be okay, right? Or do you still want someone else? I
say I
mean,
don't
because we can't rely on him being healthy per se. Really.
say I don't know because versus Fulham, Thiago played that first like 25 minutes before he got hurt. Now maybe he tweaked maybe he felt it before even the game, so that was an issue
Mhm.
too. But Liverpool were outrun versus Fulham in that first 20 minutes. I think people maybe forget that. Um, I
Mhm.
mean, the midfield was Thiago, Fabinho, and Henderson, and just Henderson and Fab didn't have the legs either. Thiago was kind of covering for them, maybe doing too much running himself. And so you bring Thiago back. I don't necessarily know if that solves it itself. Now you maybe have Elliott on the opposite end, and maybe that helps solve things too. I think getting Keita back will be big. that'll maybe change how I see how Trent is having this hybrid, more offensive role than actually being a fullback. Uh, but I don't know because again, I'm still concerned with the midfield situation, obviously. Um, so I mean, do you have any further thoughts?
Well, I just want to touch on Scott Parker being fired real quick. I mean, yeah, the 9-0 is bad, but I do feel bad for him because he did get the team to the Premier League. They had a really good year last year in the championship, and just to fire him after 4 games is, I mean, it's harsh. I think, especially because he guided you back, and they won the first game, so they're not bottom of the table. But I guess after shipping 9 goals and not scoring since that first game, which, like you said, was against Stevie G's Aston Villa
Yeah, they
2-0.
won the
Which,
first game out of the gate, and then you play. I mean,
yeah,
it's got to be the
good
scoreline,
smart
right?
teams.
I mean, you played
Yeah, it's,
Arsenal, City, and Liverpool. You weren't expecting to get
mhm.
points in that game. Um,
And
so
it's kind of telling that they're playing Wolverhampton midweek. So I mean, that's a team that doesn't really concede. So Bournemouth might not score there, but that was kind of I mean, I would like to see Scott Parker in that one, and then if he loses that one, then okay, maybe get rid of him. But I
no,
think that
because
was one of the winnable
You have
games.
Forest on the weekend,
Ooh, so maybe give him the weekend. Like,
right?
why not? And
Yeah.
if he picks up, a couple, because they're not bottom of the table, they have that win, so they're above a couple teams. So I do. I mean, I know it. You want to win, and they haven't scored since that first game, but it's a little harsh, especially when he guided you back to the Premier League, the promised land. You're just going to cut ties with them after only 4 games. But it is a compacted schedule because of the World Cup, so maybe that has something to do with it too. Who knows?
hmm And apparently, there's been. I think I've read that there were a lot of disagreements with the board behind scenes, and so it was one of those. Well, if we
Mm.
can't really work with you, and you're not necessarily
Ooh.
producing right now, maybe this is our chance to do it. So I don't know.
That's interesting because I think the same thing happened with Scott Parker at Fulham too. So yeah, that could be like a Scott. Yeah, I think he had
Okay.
trouble with the owner and the board and stuff. Yeah, at the end there. So interesting.
Because Klopp had a press conference today, and he even said something like, "Well, this is why it's good to have good owners," which like made everyone lose their minds. But I guess having that relationship is important, and
Yeah, he's
at
trying
the
to
end of the
suck up
day,
to get a signing.
these managers are are employees to to the boss, and so
Yeah, yeah,
um,
true.
one quick thing I do want to say is it is insane to me how the Liverpool's have done their transfer business this year because they put all their eggs in the Chouameni basket, and when that didn't work, a lot of fans think, oh well, that's why they signed Darwin. I don't think so. I think they immediately went to Bellingham, and
Mm,
when Dortmund didn't budge, they were just like, we'll wait on Bellingham, and so
mm,
I think that is insane because waiting a whole year. Salah isn't 27 anymore. Salah, Virgil van Dijk,
mm,
Thiago, they aren't 27 now. They're on the opposite end of 30, and so I don't I don't necessarily, like this idea of putting off another year to get like this. I mean, they did this with Van Dijk, to be fair. They
mm.
waited a season to get Van Dijk. They did the same thing with Kanate. And so maybe that's just a mold, but I'm kind of struggling with it. And frankly, Real Madrid has said that they want to maybe go get him as well. And so the only
Ooh.
thing I can think of is okay, you're not going to go in and spend to get a midfielder now. You don't want Kyron Limer. You don't want Kone of Gladbach. That's fine. Or you don't want Tielemans. You don't think he's good enough. And you don't want to pay 100 million for Ruben Neves or Casado. It is what it is. Then spend 100 million. Do a 110 million bid this January after the World Cup. Jude will have all this time to talk with Hendo in the camp, and Trent. You'll maybe have a chance to maybe recruit him. Maybe Dortmund are 10 points behind Bayern and the season's gone for them anyways. Maybe they don't advance in the Champions League. I think you should do it then. Because I think if they wait a summer, they're going to lose him to Real Madrid.
Mm. Well, yeah, I guess a lot too will depend on, like you said, how Dortmund's doing in the league. Because yeah, if they're like way off the pace, they might be like, let's sell them. But if it's a close race, they might be like, you can have them, but the price, since it's a January window, is going to be super super high. And then, like you said, if they wait, then who knows? Because he is a talented player, and big teams are going to definitely be coming for him.
Yeah. And so they do play Liverpool this Wednesday, and maybe they're finally going to get some luck on their side because it doesn't seem like Bruno Guimaraes is going to be able to go for them. Uh, Callum Wilson has apparently a bit of a hamstring issue, which we talked about last week. If he could just stay healthy, they had brought in
Yeah.
Isaac or Ishtek, uh, but
Mhm.
he's having issues getting his passport or
Yeah.
whatever the thing
So,
is.
but yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it looks like maybe Saint Maxian might not necessarily be able to go. So that would
Ooh.
definitely it could, because the way that they've been playing Trent with this like hybrid role. We saw it versus Palace. We've seen it a few times. We saw it with Rashford. Saint Maxian would have been able to cause that same issue on that right side. So maybe they won't necessarily have to deal with that. So that would be one one positive at least. And
Yeah. True.
it seems like Harvey Elliott has a knock, so we don't know if we'll necessarily see him. But I just hope to God,
Mm.
because Curtis Jones is back. Just anyone but Milner. Um, and
Ooh, I bet Miller.
you
I bet
touched
Miller
on
plays.
Bournemouth. And one thing I'll say is it was really cool actually for Firmino to get the 2 goals that he did, because I've kind of forgotten about it. He's been known as this like unselfish guy, and yet it's not Premier League. It's all competitions. I think he's like 70 in Premier League. But for him to get 100 goals in playing for Klopp, I think it's pretty cool. So all three in that front
That
three
is.
matched eclipsed over 100 goals. Salah and Mane
Hmm.
got it for the Premier League. So it's pretty cool.
Also a couple assists in this game too. Two
He looked
goals and I
better.
think what did he get 3 assists? Yeah, he
Uh,
put up. I mean, if he was in on your fantasy team, I think he got 33 points. So
oh, there you go. All right, and
someone too captain him got 66 points from him.
oh, that is cheeky. I guess
Yeah,
I guess it could make sense, because Jota's not going to come on. There's no Darwin. You figure they're going to score something for Bournemouth. That would have been chic. I
yeah,
captained Salah and got
should have
nothing.
done it.
So
Yeah, same here. I
there
did
we go.
Salah, and who would have thought Salah wouldn't get a goal or assist when Liverpool scored 9? Like that was weird too.
He could have scored 2 at least too. He had. I mean, it's not like he had a bad game. He was just a little off.
Yeah.
Like he had one that was like squared to him, that it basically just it was a tap in, but he decided to go with his left foot instead of his right, which really upset me. Because
Yeah.
I keep saying Salah on his right foot, he scores 8 more goals a season, and there's another example of it.
Mhm.
So. All right,
Yeah.
and moving to Man City, Crystal Palace. This one unfortunately ends 4-2 in a bit of a more exciting game than I was maybe expecting. Um, because it starts off with Palace getting 2 goals fairly early on, and both from corner kick, corner piece deliveries. And then it's 2-0 at halftime, and then Bernardo Silva gets one back, and then the Holland show basically happened. And
Hmm.
what's kind of interesting is, I think it might have been the second goal when they no, it was the first goal that they crossed in. Uh, Alves basically comes on as a sub. He wins a header and goes to Foden, and Foden crosses a ball that I don't think he would have played last year. So this is one of those goals where I do think having Holland is already different. Because we got on, maybe Holland's not necessarily the best in his air, but for being 6'4", it doesn't matter. You don't even have to jump, and I don't think he
Yeah.
did jump for this. And his movement
Hmm.
is excellent to get that ball, because he absolutely wrong foots. I think it was Anderson that was guarding him. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll kind of get started. Get started with this one. It's kind of interesting. We've seen Pep go with this Cancelo Walker more centrally formation, or tactics each time. And unlike with Crystal Palace, I mean, unlike with we saw with Newcastle and St. Maxian, Palace weren't able to kind of hurt them the same way because Zaha wasn't able to go. And I'm kind of wondering, maybe this would have been a different game had Zaha been able to go. I mean, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting point because it was 2-0 already. Maybe Saha kind of adds that third, or creates that third goal, and that might have really put it to bed if it was 3-0 instead of 2-0. But I don't know. Uh, yeah, it would have been really nice to see him play because I want to see like the best guys out there. But you can't take any chances with a player that good, especially when you have a game in like 3 or 4 days. So maybe you can go midweek instead, and you rest them in this one. But I mean, man, just the Holland purchase is already paying dividends. I know we kind of questioned, what it would be like with City having like a proper number 9, and I mean, we haven't seen City with a tall striker since like Dzeko probably.
Jacko would be a good,
So
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, and he's answered the question really, really quickly. I know some games he doesn't have many touches, but still gets an assist or a goal. And here he kind of he put the team on his back. It was kind of what we expected. You have some really good passers of the ball in behind him, like De Bruyne and Foden. and I mean, he just feasted, and he's going to continue to feast. I think unless an injury crops up or something. But man, it's fun to watch him play. He's impressive. I think City are definitely better with a number 9 for the most part. And I guess to your point too, with Walker and Cancelo pinching in, I guess it's because maybe like Laporte's not back, so
I
it's
think so.
Stones. Maybe he's
Yeah.
kind of,
You
and they are conceding goals too, so he's trying to stop that.
And you brought that up. I think when the first time I brought this up for West Ham, I think that's a really good observation. That maybe is the reason why they're doing this. They don't feel they have control passing from the back without that. Jeremy said something like Kinsella and Pep usually or does this with Kinsella and Walker, and then like reverts it, every season or so, which is something I didn't realize either. But it looks like they might get
Hmm.
Laporte back
Yeah,
within a couple weeks, and so. It is interesting because right now it seems like maybe this is the time to try to go get City. It doesn't seem John Stones is fit right now. He didn't really do a
yeah,
preseason. You can't really blame him for the own goal, but just he didn't necessarily look that great. I mean, Palace only had 2 shots all game, and the two
yeah,
shots came from the corner kicks. So it's not like they
yeah.
were
Palace's numbers
it's
were
not like they
not
were
great.
necessarily tested. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, it does feel like if there was a time to maybe get for City to be vulnerable, you would expect it to be now, where you think there would maybe
Mhm.
be some kind of hangover to trying to learn how to play with Holland. Maybe you have to learn what
Sure.
the kind of passes he likes, and they're still. I mean, they're giving up 2 goals in to their opponents in a couple of these games, but it's still not necessarily mattering.
Yeah,
So
and we've seen him kind of kick up a notch. When being down a couple times by multiple goals already this season, and they kind of just step it up another notch and just play even better and end up winning and scoring a bunch of goals. So yeah, that'll be the good part for Pep. But the conceding, he'll be mad about that. They'll try to cut that out. But for me, I hope they keep this up. I want to see shootouts every time, especially. I don't necessarily want City to win the league, so if
yeah.
they're conceding, that's good for me, good for you too. So
Well, and it's kind of interesting because the story is going to be Holland, obviously. But and it's starting to look like maybe Bernardo Silva is staying because all of a sudden Pep's starting to play him a little bit more, and it is interesting. Everyone talks about Kevin De Bruyne as basically being the best midfielder in the league, and I think that's a fair estimate. But I think it's easy to overlook just how good Silva and Gundogan are as
yeah,
well. They can. It seems like they can play in like 6 different positions if Pep asks them to. Bernardo
yeah,
Silva was playing deep next to Rodri, and like you saw him being out wide and doing a fine job on the wing. That's actually how they score their first goal. And when you have someone as good as Rodri who's able to like hold in place, and he's so good defensively, that allows those two to be really free. And you've seen both weeks the kind of passing they were able to put together. I mean, the ball Gundogan plays for Holland's fourth, or I mean Holland's third, is basically the same ball Kevin De Bruyne played versus West Ham. I don't know if you kind of remember that. So
yeah, yeah. Gundogan, I definitely feel has been underrated. Like basically ever since he left Dortmund, he's been kind of underrated. And he doesn't play all the time, but when he does, he seems to do really well. And there was a time where he was forced into the lineup, and he scored like 10 goals in 12 matches or whatever a couple years ago. So yeah, both those players are underrated, I think. But it's because you have like De Bruyne and Foden, so it's going to be the case, I guess.
yeah, and another thing that might be interesting to watch is so we've seen Pep play basically Foden on the right side to start. We saw Bernardo Silva actually play the right wing versus Newcastle. And we saw Mahrez finally start. We hadn't necessarily seen him start in right wing since the Community Shield game, and he was hooked. Alvarez came back on for him. So that'll
Yeah.
be interesting to maybe follow going forward. This is now 2 games where I think Alvarez has had a pretty good impact coming on. Now
Hmm.
he didn't score this game, but he had a couple really nice combination plays, and
Yeah.
it's his header that kind of helped get City's second goal. So
Yeah, you know what I call those, Ben? I call those, well, they're hockey assist. It's basically like it's the assist that sets up the assister. You actually
yeah, I
get an
like it.
assist in hockey.
Pre-assist.
Yeah, so like a goal in hockey can get 2 assists. So yeah, it's kind of like a hockey assist. So
I like
kind of
that.
like Salah
There,
too,
there
and
should
not on the
be
score sheet, but
there should be a stat for that. I like that.
yeah, pretty cool.
And maybe one thing we should mention is, for as dominant as City were, And you look at any kind of category, and they obviously deserve to win this game, and I mean
Yeah.
by a pretty good margin. There was a weird
Hmm.
sequence of events that we should maybe highlight. One, Palace have a 2-goal lead. Ederson has the ball and decides to try to throw it to a City player, and he's close enough to a Palace player where he sticks out a foot and actually deflects the ball. The ball goes to a Palace player, and he gets it in the net. And this wasn't. I didn't actually watch it live, so I don't know if it was given and then VAR overturned it, or the ref just like decided it was no goal. But I've looked at this a couple of times, at least on replay. I don't get why that wasn't given. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I actually didn't see that either. I don't know. I'll have to look at it. I have no idea, but he does. He kind of does. Ederson kind of does that from time to time. I guess he's just, really looking to start a counterattack and kind of fails
Mhm.
to see the opponent like close enough to stick out a foot and get it, which is kind of worrisome. But I don't know. I have to look at that. I didn't see that. I wonder why that didn't stand.
I mean, there's a very famous game that I watched live in the Champions League final that I saw my keeper, or Liverpool's keeper, do something similar
Oh
where Benzema was able to stick out a foot, and
God,
that counted. Um,
curious. Yeah.
so I mean, that was a little surprising. And then Holland had a high boot to the face. That I don't even think was a yellow card. And that
Ooh.
maybe could have been a red as well. And this was before he got the hat trick. So
Huh.
little uh little unlucky. I don't necessarily want to say City should have lost, but certain events could have had maybe they gotten different rulings on either of those.
Yeah.
Maybe you could
Who
have seen
knows what would?
a
Yeah.
different result. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so those are those two games, and City and Liverpool winning, I guess, isn't a lot of fun for the neutral. Maybe this one will be. So we'll get going with Arsenal and Fulham. This one ends 2-1. And well, I guess the lineup news was Arsenal not having Zinchenko and Partey because I guess they did something in training. So we finally got to see Tierney start, and the midfield was El Nini and Shaka, and we'll kind of get into. We don't necessarily think that was the best, and El Nini maybe even has a knock now. So I mean, you kind of wrote that the first half was kind of dull and the second half came to life, and then you wrote that Gabriel was really the story of the game, and I agree. So, but it started with
Yeah.
Mitrovic scoring, and it was because of Gabriel's mistake. He catched
Mhm.
Gabriel maybe being too cute, and then one player we should definitely highlight is Martin Odegaard, and I don't know if it's because Arteta decided to make him captain, but I actually did like a Twitter post or maybe last week when everyone was kind of gassing Arsenal up as maybe they can be a potential title contender, and the things I highlighted that I was concerned about was I actually mentioned Gabriel. I said he could maybe be a liability because I saw him do some maybe get lucky on a handball versus Palace. That could have been a
Yes.
PK.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh
and uh,
yeah.
and I remember I brought up like the Europe, the Europa traveling, and then another thing I said is sometimes Odegaard can go missing in big games, and we've now
Yeah.
seen well at least
That's true.
in these last two games he's really showed up for them. He got the 2 goals last week, and he had a great game in this one when Fulham were actually pressing and trying to be physical with him, and he was still finding
Mhm.
ways to be really really influential. So I think that helped as well. So
Yeah, I agree.
we'll kind of get started. Oh, one thing I guess I'll get my point out and then kind of throw it to you is I think some people have kind of had the same thought where maybe this is the kind of game Arsenal don't necessarily win last year. People have talked
Mhm.
about grit and maybe they're they fought a little bit more. I think it's because Arteta made some pretty big changes in that second half. He brought on Nketiah and actually switched formations. Um,
Yeah.
and this was a different it's where you didn't just see Arteta getting lucky. You saw him actually making the right decisions to change a game in mid game,
Mhm.
and basically he won 3 points from it.
Yeah.
So we'll just kind of get started with your thoughts. I'll let you. I mean, I've kind of taken your time to talk about Arsenal, so have your say.
Well, yeah. I was a little, a little down when I saw the team news. I think Zinchenko has a slight knee problem, and Partey has a slight thigh problem. I think they picked it up Friday, so that's why like we didn't really have you know notice about it at all. So hopefully those aren't big issues because they really seem to miss them. Tierney was a little sluggish, honestly.
I think
It
so
is
too.
his first start this season. So it's to be expected because he's been injured and hasn't. He's come off the bench a couple times, but I guess I was disappointed, but it's to be expected. It's his first start, so hopefully he'll just be getting better. And then we talked about it on the script. El Neni, he's a solid player. I don't want to like throw him under the bus. He's a solid player, but he does tend to in possession make sideways passes or just drop it back.
Yes.
He's not really like penetrating with his passes. But also, I was kind of surprised Lakonga didn't start or at least come off the bench for El Neni, mainly because Arteta was really hyping him up in preseason, and he was playing well in preseason. So I was kind of like, well, here's a chance for him to start. Kind of if Arteta, if you think he's been doing so well and you kept him, when maybe you could have sold him or let him out.
Hmm.
Now's a good game for him to maybe get in. Maybe, not starting, I get that. Maybe just put El Neni in because he's so solid and start strong. But he didn't even come off the bench, and he hasn't played at all hardly. So I don't know. Maybe he's going to feature in the Europa League. I don't know. But I was kind of like, if he's playing so well, here's a great time for him to come off the bench at least, and let's see what he has. And then I guess I don't want to throw Saka under the bus either, but Saka hasn't looked that well this season so far. We talked about Ben White's behind him, so maybe that is part of the issue. He doesn't necessarily have proper fullback behind him.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I think he'll come good. He hasn't played necessarily terrible. He's just been like overshadowed by some of the other players. Jesus and Martinelli and Odegaard playing pretty well. And then lastly, though, Ben, on your point about Nketiah, I thought that really did change the game a lot. He was instantly providing chances. He probably should have scored. Maybe just coming off the bench, your first couple of touches, it's hard to score immediately.
Hmm.
But I do think he made quite an impact. But I do want to see him start scoring because I think he really needs to push Jesus. He needs to push Arteta he's pushing for playing time, but he needs to be pushing to get some starts. And I think he will, again, Europa League probably, maybe some cup games. But it is important that he kind of has that impact as a sub, and maybe that might get him a couple starts, which I would like to see because I think he's a really good player. And, Jesus is going to need some rest too. So, but overall, kind of a roller coaster ride. I went from like kind of mad to, okay, a tie's not bad, to, yeah, we won. Love you, Gabriel. So, I don't know. The Gabriel mistake was bad, but making up for it, I like. First, it is the first mistake that leads directly to a goal for Arsenal. They had 5 of those last year, so hopefully we don't get another one of those for a while. I don't want it to be like the clown show when we had like Louise and Mustafi back there.
So far, you haven't seen the red card every other five games or
Oh
so.
God. Well, that's coming too. I'm sure.
Oh no,
Shock is playing. So.
that's true. He was one of the worst ones. That is true. No, you did mention Jesus, and what's kind of funny is I actually texted Jeremy in real time during the game. It was interesting when I would see Jesus he was trying to come to the ball a little bit more than actually trying to be an outlet. So I saw
Mhm.
him coming to the ball and getting the ball basically out wide, and you would look and there'd just be no one in the box at all, and it was actually pretty easy for Fulham's fullbacks. And one
Mhm.
thing Nketiah immediately did is he occupied that space, and I think one of the reasons why those two fullbacks weren't able to close down on Odegaard as much as they would have is that they had Nketiah and Jesus both together, and
Mhm.
Odegaard would have been able to maybe flip them through. So yeah, I mean, it's just one of those times where you don't necessarily even have to score to be effective. Just sometimes you just have to occupy space. So
Yeah.
I think that was big. And another thing I told Jeremy was uh, when I watched the Liverpool play Fulham, Liverpool didn't cause some issues until Darwin came on because Firmino was kind of doing the same thing, and
Right.
Brentford didn't cause Fulham issues until Tony. They started finding Tony in the box. So having a striker and occupying those areas definitely does seem to be a way to kind of get a Fulham a little bit. I guess I would say.
Yeah, that's a good point. How about Mitrovic though? Another goal, and he could win the Golden Boot, right? When you watch him play too, he's just huge. It's hard to mark him, and you can't do what Gabriel did, and you can't just take your time with the ball when Mitrovic is on you because he'll punish you. And if he stays healthy, he could win the Golden Boot. I think he'll definitely be in the top five of the Premier League. He's carrying the team at times.
You know what's funny is he's a big guy, so obviously you figure a big guy's going to be good in the air. He's got nimble feet.
Mhm.
Not just the cut that he did on Van Dijk. He did that versus Brentford a couple times. Um, he had something like 60 touches in this game, which is oh, it was 44. I mean, but still, that's like
Still pretty
double.
good for.
It's double what it's double what Holland got. So he's trying to show up for link play. He has a pretty good first touch on him. I actually texted Jeremy. Um, what do you think about maybe Real Madrid trying to go for this guy and making him the second guy to Benzema? Because it feels like Madrid need a second striker, and maybe they don't want to get necessarily a main number 9 that wants to start. But I mean, Mitrovic I think is 27 and he's a Serbian national. He'll be in the World Cup. It's not like this
Mhm.
guy is scratch. So
Right.
I think it,
Well, yeah. To your point though, like how come like in Everton who desperately need a striker with Calvert Lewin out, like or there's Bournemouth maybe there's tons of teams that would love to have a really good striker like Mitrovic, but I guess Fulham's like, hey, he's our main guy. He's going to start every game. We don't want to sell him. But yeah, like if the right money came, if Real Madrid wanted him, that they would definitely sell. But yeah, it's kind of, I mean, a little bit underrated maybe because his first year in the Premier League with
that
Fulham, like he
that's
barely
got to
even
be it.
played,
Yeah,
and it was coming off like a 30-goal championship season,
right. It was
and
the
he
same
scored
thing.
40 goals basically last year. Yeah, so I guess maybe that scared people off of him, but he's got 4 goals already. So I think he will be attracting some attention. But I think he would stay at Fulham at least for the year. But after that, yeah, maybe Madrid. Who knows? He's good, like you said, nimble with the ball at his feet, athletic, and then he's just huge. Like I was always worried watching him go against Arsenal players because he's just so big. I was like, please don't hurt our players.
It was
You're huge.
one of the first times where maybe actually playing Ben White was effective at right back because Ben White actually won a few of those aerial duels where
Yeah.
again I saw him beat Trent in the air and you know, uh, versus Brentford I think it was in Premo, so he's not really a right back. He was able to
Mhm.
kind of do the same thing, and you saw Fulham trying to do that kind of ball over the top where he would try to beat a guy near post, and Ben White was actually pretty good at stopping the run.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. But he's not afraid to be physical, which is nice.
And one thing we maybe should highlight is, the nerd side of me was starting to think, basically at halftime, it was like, what a story if Bert Leno can come back and kind of haunt Arsenal and be kind of the hero. We were starting to see that because he was making a number of pretty good saves, and then I don't want to necessarily it's his fault for the corner kick goal, but he does try to go for the ball and just misses. And one thing I'd
Yeah.
say is that I've noticed with Ramsdale, and maybe you can touch on this real quick, is Ramsdale doesn't seem afraid and is he's physical no matter what at going after those kind of 50-50 balls. I never see him lose duels like that. And maybe this is one of those cases where Arsenal maybe saw this in training and maybe they made the right decision on this alone.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's a good point because he was doing Leno was doing really well, and then yeah, when he comes out for the ball and he kind of gets blocked and doesn't really come close to it, and he didn't really like explode out in anger towards the ball like Ramsdale does. You gotta like get your knee up and scare some people. You're gonna hit people hard and then punch it out hard. So yeah, that's a good point. Maybe that's part of the reason why Arsenal were like, let's go with Ramsdale because Leno isn't necessarily good in the air on crosses.
I mean, even like with the well, like all or nothing thing, it just seems Ramsdale's fine to just literally, break a bone to save a goal. That guy just
Yeah,
puts his body in danger, which I guess is what you need for a keeper.
yeah,
But
yeah.
that guy's got some stuff up here. All right, and we'll move on to Chelsea and Leicester. This one goes 2-1, and frankly, it's a disaster for Leicester. I think it's a statement game really for both teams. Uh, but one thing I want to say is, before the red card, before that, Chelsea I thought were dominating. They tried a different formation, but they Ruben Loftus-Cheek again got near the box and almost should have scored or at least caused a better save, and then nearly drew a PK and VAR overturned it for like an offsides. But Leicester just were not in this game at all from the start of it to when they even were up a man. They didn't necessarily get
Yeah.
into the game, and yeah, I mean, 2 goals from Sterling, and then Harvey Barnes at least made it interesting. And then basically the last like 5 6 minutes, Leicester was like, "Oh, wait, Chelsea are down a man," and started to actually make some saves. I think Iosi Perez even hit the bar, but it really
Hmm.
wasn't. It really wasn't that close, to be honest, for being up a man. So I think we'll kind of maybe get started there. I mean, for Chelsea's sake, this definitely could have been a disaster, because and you see maybe why they've gone to go get Fofana, because you saw maybe a formation change out of necessity. Tuchel didn't want to try Reece James at center back again, so he went with Chalaba getting a start, and was it Silva? I think it was Thiago Silva, and
Yeah, so
because he didn't have Koulibaly because of the red card, and but that wasn't necessarily able to do anything because 20 minutes into the game, Connor Gallagher got two stupid yellows, and so it kind of forced him to kind of change shape. But what's very interesting is maybe this was a blessing in disguise because Tuchel actually changed to basically a 3-4-2, and so he started playing Havertz and Sterling together as a tandem, and you started to see Reece James kind of get forward a little bit more, and that started to unlock their offense a little bit. You finally saw an offensive player get a goal for them at least. So, well,
yeah.
maybe start with that. I mean, did you notice anything else, or what did you notice Chelsea doing something different?
Well, yeah. I mean, the center back issue was definitely a concern, but like you said, Koulibaly was hurt, or I mean, out because of the red card, and then I mean, your only other center back is Ethan Ampadu, and I mean, after this game, he basically, I think he's either loaned out or they sold. I can't remember. So yeah, they were paper thin there, so they had to do it. I feel like I mean, I was also disappointed. I'm a fan of Gallagher. I was disappointed with him getting those two stupid yellows
Yeah,
because he's already going to have probably trouble finding playing time in this crowded midfield, especially when some other players get back. So I was disappointed about that, but I thought, like you said, it really was a statement game. Sterling got two goals, and him and Havertz did play well off of each other. So that's something that Tuchel can build on as well. He'll be happy about that for sure. But yeah, I don't know. Mainly, I was kind of focusing too on Leicester. They just haven't had a good start to the season. We've seen Rodgers make some weird decisions, like taking Dewsbury Hall off in the very first game of the season against Brentford, and they dropped that from a 2-0 win to a tie, and then in this one, Sumare instead of Ndidi, and that
yes,
holding spot was kind of weird too.
I agree with
Maybe he's just
this.
rotating the squad, but I mean, yeah, like you said though, if it's a statement game, you don't really want to rotate the squad here. Like put Ndidi in there and start him. He's a good player. He plays well in that spot. Maybe that would have changed the game. So I don't know. I think Rodgers is definitely on the hot seat. He hasn't been back financially this summer, but he still has a decent amount of players. Madison wasn't hurt. Was hurt. Wasn't in this one, so that kind of affects things too. But I'd be worried if I was Rodgers, man. It's not looking good.
I mean, we'll get into. Oh, I guess we can get into Leicester now. I mean, with Madison, one thing I've been kind of wondering is maybe Madison's been playing instead of Iheanacho, but again, we saw basically Rogers playing with five midfielders and Vardy up top, and Vardy's alone.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
ironically, the one time that Rogers has decided not to play with only one striker and actually did bring on Patsendaka, uh, was when he was up 2 goals versus Brentford, and that was when you should have maybe crowded the midfield. So he's gotten it backwards, and he's gotten it wrong way too many times. And I think this was devastating for Rodgers. To be honest, this was a game to bring on Iheanacho and maybe even Patson Daka. Maybe make Vardy actually a sub from now because he's 30. I mean, he's still got legs in him, but he's not being as nearly as impactful. I mean, we know he wants to
Yeah,
make
he
these
hasn't
runs.
scored yet either.
Yeah, it's time to maybe try something else. But
Yeah, Nacho.
to stick on stick on Chelsea though, I think it is interesting that I mean, for all we get on Tuchel and his like antics, he is like a tactic genius. And one thing I am wondering is if he does find a way to get Havertz and Sterling kind of going again, maybe even find a way to get Brocha on as well. Do you maybe start to see Chelsea a little differently because they've also just gotten Fofana in? We
Yeah.
think that signing's about to happen, and there's still
Mhm.
talks. Maybe they can try to get De Young as well. They're still trying to maybe pull some strings. So
Ooh. Yeah, that would. Yeah, they would be looking a lot better if they got De Jong too. But yeah, I think Fofana. will definitely help problems immediately, probably. And Chelsea's still in a good spot, I think. They have Pulisic off the bench, which I'd like to see him play more. But so they do have options. Brescia, like you said. So yeah, they have options. But just to circle back to Leicester, they're rock bottom of the table with 1 point right now, and they've conceded 10 goals, which is a decent amount.
Yeah, league
So
worst.
yeah, they scored 6 goals, which isn't bad, but I mean, man, yeah, I can't. And they probably, if Rodgers had left Dewsbury Hall, and they probably would have had that win opening week, and they'd be on 4 points, which is like anywhere between 14th and 12th on the table, and then they'd probably be okay. But anyway, I was gonna say, Ben, did you see the midweek cup game that Leicester who did they play, like Crawley Town, I think, and they didn't score. They actually went 0-0, and Leicester won in PKs. It was just
Uh,
more of like the fact that they couldn't beat like an EFL team.
mhm.
They couldn't even score against them. So more concern for Leicester. I don't know. I mean, I feel bad for Rodgers because they bought a backup goalkeeper, and that's it so far. So I do feel bad for him there. But man, I didn't expect Leicester to be this poor. This early on. 1 point, rock bottom on the table.
It's
It's
almost like
not good.
because they actually did go pretty hard last summer.
Yeah,
And I mean, maybe COVID really got to their finances, and they did all that investment thinking they were going to get top four, and then the Fofana injury just completely tanked them. And I mean, they over leveraged themselves. I mean, you're selling Fofana
maybe.
for $80 million, and I haven't seen anything about them trying to bring people in. Um,
Yeah.
so maybe there's such a toxic environment
Mm.
in the locker room where maybe just getting some of these guys out who don't want to be there will kind of
Yeah.
ship them up. But I think I think it's a formation and tactical problem. I just when you watch it, it's only Vardy that's making these runs, and they're not creating enough. And especially
Mm.
you're playing it against a 10-man Chelsea. Make them run, make them chase the ball a little bit. Uh,
Mm.
and to allow 2 goals against you versus a team that hasn't been firing
Yeah.
to start the season is I think was troubling. Yeah, and
Mm.
one thing to maybe highlight is I actually really liked the way Havertz looked, at least in some of these in both of these goals, but really that second half. Um,
Mm.
it seems there's clearly a player here, especially on that second goal. He first like there's like a 12 or 13 consecutive pass movement, and then they're doing this down a man. But Havertz first shows to the ball, has a really good touch, and he's able to get it out wide. Then he's able to make a run out wide again, and he's able to basically have the right composure to time the pass when Reece James is making a run. So Reece James isn't
Mm.
offside, and it fools everyone. And Reece James is able to basically square a really easy ball for Sterling to have a tap in. Um, but it's just there's clearly a player here. A lot of people have been getting
Yeah.
on him. I just don't think he's a striker, but we kind of talked about that last week. Um,
Yeah, and he seems to be. I read a couple articles. He seems to really like playing with Sterling too. So that's definitely something to look ahead in the future. 'Cause he does get a bad rap in, and I do think maybe he was playing in the wrong spot because if he's up top by himself, kind of thing, it's just too hard for him, especially coming from a different league, not used to the Premier League. But yeah, I think he's a good player, and we kind of coined it the Mueller role for Havertz last week. So we'll see what happens there.
and moving on to Brentford v Everton, and once again, it wasn't necessarily the best weekend for our buddy Jeremy. So this one goes 1-1. Goals from Anthony Gordon and Vitaly Janelt. And the XG was Brentford 2.14 or to Everton, I think like a little over one. They had 20 shots, but only I
Mm.
think like two or three on target. And Everton only had 14. Brentford actually had more possession and actually had better passing this game. They had 429 with 83%. Sometimes they're in the 70s, mid 70s. But I
Mm.
think maybe some of that was Everton were not pressing at all. Everton were very fine to sit back with their back five, and just try to
Yeah.
play a counter ball. And in a weird way, maybe that was the right way to play it because Everton went with like a false three. They didn't really play with a striker, and they just kind of
Yeah.
assumed one of these runs from Gordon or McNeil or Damari Gray was going to confuse the center backs, and that's basically what we saw happen. So,
Mm.
uh, well, I don't know. We'll kind of get started with your thoughts, Rex. What were you thinking about this game?
Yeah, and what you mentioned is really not a bad strategy either because Donka was in instead of Jansen, and Ben Mee is new to Brentford too. So you're kind of playing with a center back that hasn't really played that much.
Mhm.
Zonka started in the cup game midweek at least, but besides that, didn't really play. And then Mee has played a lot, but only a handful of games for Brentford. So yeah, that's kind of a good strategy. Hickey too is new, so kind of like confuse that back four, especially when you don't have a center forward really right now. I mean, unless you want to play Rondon. But yeah, like at, from a Brentford standpoint, it was kind of a it was an annoying game because
Yeah, that's
Brentford
a good way to put
did
it.
dominate at times, hit the post a couple times, things like that. So it was kind of annoying. But at the same time, they're chugging along. They're picking up points. They only have one loss. So it's not bad. And from an Everton standpoint, I thought it was a pretty scrappy game for them to come and get a point. And that is kind of the kind of games they need, I think, just to be able to scrap out points and stay above that drop zone. Because right now, I think they're still in the drop zone, but at least they're getting back there. They actually have made some signings at least. Onana is playing pretty well. Barkowski is in the lineup, and they got McNeil. So I think I think it's kind of a good result for both teams because Brentford's worried about that sophomore slump, and Everton just needs to pick up points. So I think this early on, I think a point is a pretty good result for everyone.
I mean, but like, you mentioned the shots. So 20 shots, 14 were inside the box, and 10 of them were off target. So
Ugh.
it was just really poor finishing, and some really nice saves from Pickford.
Yeah.
We'll say that as well. But yeah, Waisa definitely had one that I remember that Jeremy like actually texted me. He was just like, "I'm done with him." It's not necessarily the easiest ball coming to him, but maybe he should try to put that on target. Tony had a one that hit off the post. You normally think he
Mhm.
he did a good job to win the header. And Bremo kind of didn't just he was getting close,
Yeah.
but Bremo was
And
kind
Boom
of
up
kind
and
of missing.
scored.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that's kind of like in Boom last year too. It was kind of like, but they got some good players off the bench too. Damsgaard and King Lewis Potter came off the bench, so those could be guys. That once they start getting more minutes, they could really be contributing. And they both played in the cup game too, so I think things are looking pretty good for Brentford. And they'll be happy with the point. It's frustrating because they dominated times and they hit the post a couple times, but it's better than nothing. And I think if they just continue just to pick up points and not lose games, they'll be fine.
yeah, I mean it's interesting. He keeps trying to do this 4-3-3. We keep talking about it every week. Last year it was kind of the opposite. He mostly played a back five. You could have maybe matched back fives. So I don't know if bringing Ben Mee that's been an issue. Even though he played in a back five slash back three with wing backs. Versus United, that didn't seem to be a problem. So uh,
Well, you
Maybe
might
with
see him
Zanko that was an
switch.
issue. Um,
Yeah, yeah, Zach. And when Azure comes back and Jansen come back, maybe he will opt to go with the three center
and
backs
they're
in the
missing
back again.
Panic, so maybe that could be a problem
In
too.
panic, yeah. So they're missing a bunch of center backs. So
Yeah.
yeah, good point.
So maybe not all bad for Brentford fans. And
Yeah.
to touch on with Everton, I think I saw that Dominic Calvert-Lewin is scheduled to at least be back in training either this
Oh,
week.
that's good.
They said this week when I was watching the highlights. I guess that means literally this week because it's Saturday, or probably next week. Next week at the latest. Now training doesn't necessarily mean game shape. So
Yeah,
maybe he'll be able to go versus Liverpool or be on the bench. But that will definitely
yeah.
definitely help them. You imagine.
You'd
Um,
think they'd ease him back into the lineup. I mean, I hope at least because he is kind of injury prone, so they need to be really careful with him.
just
Like maybe just come off the bench a couple times
don't
first
don't start
before
him. Don't start him versus
throwing him
Liverpool.
in.
Don't start him versus Liverpool. Just
Yeah,
stick with this
I don't
false
think they
three.
will.
Don't play with a
They'll just
striker.
be they'll just be asking for an injury if they're just like, hey, you just came back, let's throw you on and start. That'd be trouble for him, I think. So I think you're fine there. I don't think he's gonna play.
And well, actually, maybe not. Gordon could actually cause issues
Yeah,
with his runs.
yeah,
Um,
maybe.
One thing you mentioned Onana. I think that Onana and Iwobi partnership, I think, is actually really good for them. Onana's turning out to be a really good signing because he's actually
Yeah, he
he's
really
pretty
is.
strong on the ball. He's able to make
Hmm.
pretty good runs. He won 5 out of his 6 duels, which is really good. And I think he only lost the ball 9 times, with like a 90% passing accuracy. And when you're talking about
Mm.
someone playing in the middle of the park, that's what you want. You want those people to win those duels and to not turn it over. So
Yeah, yeah, he's a good signing. Everton's made some decent signings so far. Tarkowski and Onana, and I mean I think Cody will be okay too.
well,
So yeah, at least they're getting backed.
the goal came from Cody. For some reason, Brentford decided not to put any kind of pressure on Cody, and you can get on Cody maybe for some defensive mistakes, or maybe he's not necessarily the best running backwards, or running
Yeah.
towards goal to defend. But he's one of the better passing center backs in the league. At least that he was at Wolves. So I imagine
Mhm.
he'll be the same for Everton.
Yeah.
And you saw the kind of ball he can play when you give him time.
Mhm. Well, he was in the mix for the England squad a couple of years ago, I think. So yeah, I mean he's pretty good.
And maybe the one negative is one of their better players in the back for the last couple of weeks has been Mason Holgate, and it
Mhm.
looks like he maybe has a knee issue. So going forward, I don't know if
Ooh, that could be
Frank
big.
Lampard will change formations or try to go with Michael Keane instead. He brought on
Mm.
Michael Keane as a sub, so I mean, if their back three is Michael Keane, Connor Cody, and James Skorkowski,
Ugh.
you can make some runs in behind them and give them some fits.
Yeah.
They'll be
Yeah.
they'll they'll,
Yeah.
There'll be some
That'd be
PK.
interesting to
There'll
see.
be some PKs given that day.
Oh yeah, they'll be hacking people down.
And all right, so moving on to Southampton and Man United. This one ends 0-1. And I guess the injury or lineup news was once again Ronaldo, Shaw, and Maguire were benched, and Casemiro made the bench and was able to come on in the
Mhm.
second half. Ronaldo made a small appearance as well, but the goal from
Mhm.
Bruno and one thing I'll say at least the story of the game is it wasn't pretty, but we saw basically last week how easy it is to have a gigantic result the week before and then kind of come into the next game kind of slump. And United didn't necessarily
Yeah.
do that. I mean, it's not like they played great, but they a giant win versus Liverpool on Monday, and then you quick turnaround. It was the early game on Saturday as well, at an away
Mhm.
ground. And Southampton were pretty organized for being playing a bunch of new players. So I think this is a pretty good result for United. Regardless of the performance. But I don't know what kind of get started there. I mean, what did you think about United or Southampton?
It seems like Ten Hag has kind of found the starting 11 group that he feels most comfortable with,
Hmm.
and maybe keeping it consistent. Consistency might be the key here. Because we did talk about like you need to get Maguire out of there. The fullbacks aren't good enough. Fred's probably not good enough. Ronaldo doesn't want to be there, so don't start him. And back to back weeks he's done that, and it's paid off. So I think really there's no reason for him to change anything right now, especially when they're winning. And like you said, to be that coming off that high of that big win and kind of playing Southampton next, you might be like, you might not be able to, get fully up for that game after the huge win. You're not focused and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So, it was a big result. And Ten Hag was kind of like saying last week, if we don't beat Southampton and we don't build upon our Liverpool win, then what's the point? So they certainly did that, and they got another tough week coming up. They play Arsenal on the weekend, so we'll see if he
Ooh.
does rotate anything around. Because I am still worried because you don't really have any center backs after Martinez and Varane. Because I don't trust Harry Maguire, and then they got rid of Bailly, so they have like Lindelof, I think, but he's hurt. So I am worried about that still, because they are, Martinez is new to the league and Varane is old, so they are going to have to rest some. So that is concerned, but it's looking up, man. 6 points in 2 games. They're building upon results. I think it's good. I think Ten Hag has kind of found the recipe for success here, and I think he'll try to stick with this lineup going forward. I would imagine maybe Casemiro instead of like
Well,
McTominay, but other than that,
there might be some tweaks. I think that's a good way to kind of transition. We'll spend less time talking about the game and more, I guess, what United have done in the window. It's very Ajax heavy, Ajax flavor, I guess we'll put it. They not only brought the Ajax coach in, they brought in Martinez. They tried to go for Timber. Christian Eriksen was an Ajax guy before he went to Spurs. And it looks like I think it's official now. They've spent whatever 90 some million for Anthony. So
Mm,
and they brought in Casemiro and Valencia as well. So what
mm.
kind of look out of place here. What do you maybe think of what they've done in this window and kind of to recreate the team? Because one thing I'll say, because a lot of people are kind of getting on, oh, why are you spending all this? Oh, it's a horrible window. We said they needed to get a DM and CDM, a central defensive midfielder. They brought in basically probably the best dual and tackler in Europe, and he's 30. He's not like he's 35. And we said
Yeah.
they needed to maybe balance out their attack a little bit. They've gone and actually gotten a right foot winger. Sancho and Marcus Rashford do not like playing on that side, which we've seen every time it's been tried. Frankly, when we said they needed to do something with Maguire, it looks like they've got Martinez and they got Varane playing there instead. So they've at least addressed the issues that we kind of talked about, back in that July pod. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I like the way that I do like the way that they kind of brought in some Ajax players from Ten Hag's days there. So Ten Hag is used to them, knows what they can bring,
Mhm.
and likes them, knows their personality in the locker room. He knows that he can come and give them instructions, and they'll do what he says. So I really like that part. And then they also Malatia is from Feyenoord, so Ten Hag's pretty used to him too, playing him twice a year in the Eredivisie.
Oh, I
So
didn't realize
I
that.
really do
That makes
like that.
sense.
Yeah, yeah. So he's seen him a decent amount.
He's been
So
really
I
good
do
so far
like
for them
that.
too.
Yes, he's another part of the two games is he put him in too, and Steve Shaw. So
Right.
that's
Yes.
really paid off too. And and Anthony coming in too. 100 million is a lot. 100 million euros is a lot, but I mean he's a good player too, and he's another player. I think this guy is who Ten Hag really wanted after Martinez. He wanted Anthony, and it looks like they got him, and I think he's going to be a great player for him. And another player that Ten Hag knows really well. So you can kind of see the team taking shape already, and so maybe in a couple windows, you'll kind of have Ten Hag kind of have what Arteta has is the team he actually wants. So I think it's a pretty good window. I do worry about like Casemiro's old, so that might be a problem. A huge contract, like in a couple of years,
Mhm.
it might be a problem. But right now, he definitely will help them. And things are looking up. They're building their squad right now. It's early days, so you can't really know to expect. But I do like the way they're building it. Players that the coach is used to is always a positive. And Arteta kind of did that too with Zinchenko and Jesus.
Well, it's interesting how, like these days, the wingers aren't necessarily supposed to be wide players. Like they get the ball out wide, because that's the only where the space is. But it seems like the ask or the task that they're asked to do is to actually come inside and be narrow and basically kind of form, basically become another attacker in some respect. And one thing I'm kind of noticing is I'm guessing Rashford and Sancho just don't have a left foot. That's why they don't like cutting inside from the right side, and they do like cutting inside when they play on the left side. And so what Anthony
Hmm.
does is he will cut inside because his preferred foot is left. You see that with Salah too.
Yeah.
I mean, this will maybe because it'll maybe also offer a little more overlap. So you'll maybe see Dallo kind of get some crosses in, and it's Dallo's cross actually that got the goal for United. So. Um,
Yeah, and he's been pretty good too. Yeah.
mhm. And so, I mean, to quickly touch on Southampton, uh, frankly, it was a pretty even game. I mean, it's 267 passes to 299. And one thing to say is 299 passes for a side like Man United, who likes to
Hmm.
try to see themselves as like one of the bigger clubs. I mean, Arsenal, for comparison, I think I read had 509. That's not that's not good enough. And you saw in the second half they were giving the ball away a lot. Uh, and I mean, shots. I think they outshot him. So I mean, it's not. You kind of maybe feel Southampton could have gotten something in this game, right?
Yeah, totally. It was a really even game, honestly. And Southampton has been pretty tough in games so far this year. We kind of know them recently as a team that likes to give up 7 goals in one game. But yeah, they were competitive. They're tough to beat so far. And I don't know, like this player has caught my eye. I don't know if he's caught your eyes, but Romeo Lavia from City. He's
Yes.
only 18 years old. He's played in all 4 games. He's young, but I think he's a pretty good player. He's one for the future. And I mean, he's only 18
He's
too,
kept
so
he's kept
I've enjoyed watching him.
he's kept Orlu, is that his name? Romeo on the bench,
Yeah, Romeo.
and Romeo is actually a
Mhm.
pretty good player for them, or at least
Yeah.
he's been in the past. He's really good. He's very good. He's clever at getting the ball, and he's press resistant. I guess I'll put it
Mhm.
that way.
And
So
Aribo isn't too bad either
well,
from
the Bella Kotchap
Rangers.
I thought was pretty lively as a defender for them.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah,
so
yeah, he's a good player too, I think.
and
And they seem to like always have some turnover too. So they lost some good players. Broja was like the star of their team. They lost him. So yeah, they are kind of trying to replace him, and they haven't done a bad job. Honestly,
well,
it's not necessarily like the stars, but they're good players.
I really like the sub he brought on, Seeker Mar. He did it in like the 77th minute, and I think I wrote down had he brought him on a little bit earlier, I think maybe he could have helped produce a little goal because
Hmm.
he's had some magic every time I've kind of seen him come on. He had a bicycle kick that that could have the ball could have bounced anywhere. I think it was like cleared off the line. Um, but
Oh, it's from Bordeaux.
Bordeaux. Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, so I don't know much about him honestly. So that's another player that they kind of you know grabbed from obscurity.
No, pretty much. Yeah, I think it was versus Leeds where he came on and he had a wonderful little play to set up. I think they're either their game tying goal or game winning goal a couple weeks ago. So
Yeah, he's got an assist already. So
and so moving on to let's see, Nottingham Forest and Tottenham, and I wasn't really expecting a whole lot from this game to be honest, but it turned out to be not too bad, not too shabby. Forest's home crowd, in every single game has been excellent. Uh,
yeah, they're raucous.
but this game ends 0-2 with Spurs getting both goals from Kane as well. And
Mm.
the first goal is I think the most like typical Kane goal you can imagine because
Yeah, it really
he
is.
drops back in midfield to try to collect the ball. He actually doesn't even get it. It's actually kicked off him, but the ball goes to Kulishevsky. Kulishevsky is able to dribble upfield. No one's able to get a man on him. And then he finds Kane, who makes the run, and then he honestly scuffs the shot, but it goes in. And then for the second goal was a bit wild as well because there's a sequence where Sessegnon looked like he had like a FIFA goal to Kane, and he messed up, and Kane was like so like depressed. He's had his hands in his head, and then out of nowhere, Richarlison was able to come on, body of a player off the ball, and then try to really cheeky like outside the foot cross that Kane was able to just kind of kneel and head in for. It was basically a FIFA goal as well because it was a nice tap in. But I mean the key statistic that I saw was Forest having 17 shots, but only one on target, and
Yeah.
Spurs were 7 of 7. Uh,
Mm.
but I don't know. I guess we'll maybe get started with Forest side. We'll be a little different. Normally we lead with the team that wins. Because I actually think that they maybe could have gotten something from this, even though they had a lot of things go their way. Henderson saved another PK. So I
Mhm.
mean, what were you thinking on this, Rex?
Yeah, Henderson has been amazing. But yeah, I'm kind of surprised that Steve Cook didn't start. I mean, I guess Dennis just came, so it's a little too early for him.
Hmm.
But I really want to see more Awoni in there. I think he's a really good striker.
I think
He's
so
scored a
too.
lot of goals for Union Berlin, and I do think Lingard's pretty good. But I wouldn't have him as a striker. I think I'd have him in behind Awoni in there. But I mean, another thing too is we haven't mentioned it yet this week, but we talked about it a bunch last week. It looks like Forest is going to get Renan Lodi on loan, which will be their 18th new player to arrive this summer. Which is, I mean, that's insane. 18 new players. I mean, and some of them didn't even start
So
yet.
is he a
So
fullback?
Kuyate off the
I
bench.
don't even
Um,
maybe midfielder. Like,
is he? I think he's a winger.
oh
Yeah,
wait, okay.
but I think, but I mean, gosh, they you would think they'd be you think they'd be okay, but our buddy Alex on the reserve squad always points out that if you just throw in a bunch of new guys, they're not going to have any chemistry. They're not going to be used to playing with each other.
To be honest, that
Maybe
they were
maybe
just pinning
that's the
out.
issue right now. Yeah. I mean that might be the issue in this game. But I think once they get things going and they kind of Cooper can kind of get them a lineup consistency going. I think they'll be okay. but like you said, they were. I mean, they were kind of in this game. They shut out Son too. I guess that's kind of the blueprint ever since week one.
Hmm.
When you're going against Tottenham, is kind of shut out Son. Yeah, I mean, I think they'll be okay, but I want to see some lineup changes, mainly because you do have like two 11s. They can start. You look at the bench and it's like, wow, all those guys could have started.
See, what's wild is they have two, maybe not two 11s. They have like two teams where they can field like eight or nine players. But
Yeah, that's what I meant.
out of all of
Like two
these,
teams of 11. Yeah.
out of all of these, no, no, no. What I'm trying to get to is out of all of these signings, I think they only brought in one center back. I think Niakite, from Mines.
Oh, yeah.
But other
Mhm.
than that, it's a Steve Cook guy, and is it Scott McKenna? Um, and
Yeah.
you kind of wonder if they have enough quality in the back line. We've seen
Mhm.
basically two games where a guy's put a hand where it stuck his hand in the cookie jar and forced the PK. One actually saved a goal, so I
Mhm.
guess we'll do that. But you kind of wonder if maybe they're good enough, to be honest, because if
Yeah.
they're not going to get relegated because they signed Morgan Gibbs White. They're going to get relegated because they didn't improve their back line, in my opinion.
Yeah. And Niakita's hurt too,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
he was pretty good. He was pretty good in the first game, so they're definitely missing him. And yeah, good point. He's the only defensive signing, so maybe they need to make a 19th signing for the summer to shore up that back line,
Why not?
which is insane to say.
Go
Yeah,
bring
why not? Why
go
not?
go bring someone on Olympiacos. You don't need him for Champions League.
Oh
Just
yeah,
bring him
you
over here.
could.
Um, do what I think Brentford did that with like Michelin. They brought like a player
Yeah,
over.
yeah, the owner. Yeah, same owners.
Cheeky, cheeky. Not supposed to be able to do that, but apparently there was a loophole. Um, but
Yeah, there's some kind of loophole.
another thing that was weird is the formation. I thought was very weird. I thought it was almost redundant. Morgan Gibbs White and Lingard almost as like your creative tens with like Brendan Johnson kind of in front trying to create something ahead. And I think that's why you saw the 17 shots one on target. You didn't have strikers. And you have
Yeah.
someone like Nico Williams who's really good at crossing the ball in. And one weird thing that Spurs did is Spurs allowed them to kind of play the ball around their box because they didn't feel like there was any danger. So you saw
Mhm.
Forest having a better deal of possession. You saw them making a lot of passes because Spurs kind of allowed it. They didn't
Yeah,
press.
they're okay
They
with
didn't
it.
press at all. They just didn't feel threatened. And so
Yeah.
I agree. Starting someone like Orani just to kind of, or you mentioned Dennis might have been too early, but Orani would have at least given those center backs something to think about. Davidson
Yeah.
Sanchez had the easiest game of his life. So.
Mhm. Yeah. And when he scored like 20 goals last year for Union Berlin, so he can bang in goals.
And you mentioned for Spurs, Son not necessarily being as influential. One thing that's kind of maybe negative for Son as well is Richarlison came on and I think was once again a difference maker. Because I don't,
Yeah, he was good.
I don't necessarily think Spurs get that second goal with Son playing. I don't think he
Mhm.
would have nudged and done that kind of cross. So that can
Yeah.
maybe be something to watch. But another thing too. We mentioned Warrior last week. I think he's still kind of a problem for them. And two, I don't think their midfield is good enough, to be honest. Because you look at the passing. You can do this, I guess, for like bottom sides, but I think they would do this no matter what. I mean, it's 372 passing. They were close to five last year towards the end of the season. They were there with Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, and Man City, and they're not so far. So
Mhm. Maybe starting Basuma would fix that. Maybe.
I'm kind of. Why did you go get him? Yeah, I mean,
Well,
again,
yeah. Yeah. If you're not gonna,
I mean,
but he's kind of
he's not even getting bench minutes.
yeah, and he's kind of. I mean, Betancourt, Hoiberg, and him are kind of. I mean, they're not the same player, but they're all kind of like good DMs. Maybe not necessarily known for their passing as much as
Yeah,
just being a good
but Simon will.
solid like blanket for the back four.
Basuma, to his credit, will at least he'll get a ball in space and he'll dribble upfield with it. He'll carry it.
That's
Where
what they
you
need there.
you're seeing Hoiberg and Betancourt, they're quick side to side stuff, like you're saying. They like getting the ball out
Yeah,
wide or trying to get the ball to Kane.
yeah.
They struggle to progress upfield with it. And so yeah, I mean,
But
just
I do wonder if Richarlison. I'll be interested to see if Richarlison starts over Son. Maybe give him a little break because he had a pretty good first game, but after that he's kind of been shut down.
mhm. And I'm starting to wonder if maybe there's kind of a directive to when Kane does try to go collect the ball, they're trying to play Son in the middle, and he doesn't like that. He likes being more out wide. But
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know because there was a time when they actually did thread a ball to him. It looked like he had a chance to maybe get on goal, but he didn't feel comfortable. He had a really bad heavy touch. So,
Mhm.
anyways,
Mhm.
don't know how we're doing for time, but we'll move on to Wolves and Newcastle. This one ends 1-1. And wasn't necessarily the best game. I actually did watch this one live. Well, actually, this was a better game than I guess the Villa and West Ham game that was going on at the same time. But this had
Yeah.
two fantastic goals. First
Oh
one
yeah.
by Ruben Neves. Basically, a long distance, specialty from him. It seems like he only scores crackers. And this one was
Yeah.
one as
It
well.
does.
And then Alan St. Maxim out of nowhere basically rescued a point from Newcastle with the ball was he hit I think he hit it first time on a volley from a ball that was like just looped in from pretty high up. So to be able to control that
Oh,
and to have the power, I mean, St. Maximin on his day
it's beautiful.
is a FIFA player. He'll
Yeah.
when you
Oh
watch him
yeah.
live in a game, sometimes you'll be like, "What in the world?" But if you clip this guy, he looks like a World
It's
11
hot.
guy.
Yeah. He's
Um,
got a goal and 2 assists already too. But I mean, I think he's hurt with a hamstring, like you
Maybe,
mentioned. So
yeah, it's possible.
it.
So hopefully, not that
I'm
I'm
reading it.
not that I'm
Well,
complaining.
I'm reading it. Let me see. It looks like it says he could be on 6 to whoa. Well, it says 6 to 9 months with a hamstring injury. On
Wait, what?
yeah, it just came out on. I don't know if this is Empire of the Cop. So it's a Liverpool website, but I don't know if
He
that's
tore
true.
his hamstring? Nah, it may be like
Oh,
weeks, 6 to 8
okay. So
weeks.
here's what it is. Emil Kraft tore his
Yes,
ACL
yes,
and
yes.
is out
That's
six
right.
to nine
Six
months.
6 months. Yeah.
Yeah, that's and St. Maximin is not going to play tomorrow against Liverpool with hamstring, but he should be okay. So sorry, Liverpool fans. It's Kraft that's out for months, not Maximin, which is good because we want to see him play. He's awesome to watch.
And one thing we should say is this was definitely a good game to kind of show where if there is maybe a reason why Newcastle don't kind of push for that Europe spot this season, it might be because they don't necessarily have the bench depth yet.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have Callum Wilson this game. They also didn't have Bruno Guimaraes, and we don't. There's
Mm,
question marks whether both will be able to go versus Liverpool for the midweek game Wednesday. And
yeah.
what it, Newcastle have a lot of like guys that can run and chase. But I mean, Bruno Guimaraes kind of makes everything tick. I think. Also, Callum
Yeah.
Wilson
That's
up top is much different than Connor Wood or Chris Wood.
yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
which
That's why I do
Ishtek
like
will
them
help with
picking
that.
up him.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a smart move because you can't rely on Callum Wilson being healthy. So yeah, that's a smart move. And I mean, they smashed. Where's he from? I forget where he's from,
Real
but
Sociedad.
he's yeah, Sociedad. They smashed the transfer record. So I don't know. I think that's a good signing. You can't rely on Callum Wilson to stay healthy. But I do agree with Gomares being out. He kind of makes everything tick in the midfield. So that's going to be interesting. And it looks like Liverpool getting a little bit of luck here. No Gomares
We'll hope
and
so.
no St. Maximin. So yeah, looks
They
pretty
started
good for
with
them.
an injury crisis. Time everyone else kind of goes through that
Yeah.
as well. You weather that
Oh, I
storm.
agree. Oh, did you
Um,
see too? Klopp was kind of he was really heavy on the praise for Newcastle too. He was like, I forget what he said, but basically he was like they're probably a top 6 team already. He really
form wise,
likes
they pretty much are for the calendar year of
yeah,
2022. I think they are like points
and
wise.
he really likes their coach. He really likes their players. So that was interesting to see too.
It is kind of funny. Like if you read or if you take anything into Michael. Oh shoot, I don't actually know his name now. There's a book about Liverpool where it's really big into like the period where like Rodgers was coaching and when they were like looking for a replacement. His name was actually one of the ones seriously considered before, right next to Klopp. It was Eddie Howe.
Really?
So yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, Eddie Howe's done a great job.
Michael. It's not Michael Edwards. That's gonna bother me. Oh well. And one thing to say about Wolves is they've also done some business as well. It looks like they're about to bring in a striker from Stuttgart, Saka Kolasinac. I think that's his name. And haven't
Yeah.
necessarily seen him play, but I actually did see this guy's name mentioned a lot as someone Man United should have maybe gone after. So it'll be interesting to see if
Hmm.
Wolves have maybe nailed another good signing for them because
Yeah.
Nunes has looked pretty good for them in these cameos as
Mm.
well, and Liverpool again. Here's a guy they could have gotten and didn't. So
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah, he's been good for him so far. Yeah.
And then, all right, so we'll move on to Aston Villa and West Ham. This one ends 0-1. The goal came from Pablo Fennell's, and I kind of think it's really lazy and poor marking by John McGinn. You kind of see him just kind of looking and watching as Fornals gets the ball from Declan Rice. It's a good ball from Declan Rice. But this
Mm.
game was dross, to put it
Yeah.
nice. I mean, nine shots to seven, 3 shots on target versus two. I mean, the XG, neither of them had one. And so, I mean, I guess the story of the game is West Ham do get off the board. They finally score their first goal in open play, and
Mm.
just and both kind of look a little lifeless. But it looks like
Yeah.
West Ham might be about to change that. So, well, maybe get started with there. It looks like they maybe added Lucas Paqueta. So, what do you think of that signing?
I think he's definitely someone that they could use because they have had kind of a rough start, and Bowen hasn't gotten going. Antonio hasn't gotten going and was benched for Skamaka, who I think is another pretty good signing. But yeah, man, I think Paqueta's a good player. I think he'll kind of be kind of that Gomarias player for them because in the midfield they usually just go with a double pivot of Rice and Suchek, who
Yes.
they're great in their own right, but they're not going to be offering kind of the attacking passes and patterns that Paqueta provides. Fornals kind of did that in this game. And he's a good player, but I think Paqueta will change a lot of things for West Ham, and this was a really important win for them because they are a good team. They got a lot of talented players, and we kind of expect them to be at the top of the table after their season last season, and they really haven't gotten off yet. And this will go a long way, I think, to kind of getting the team confident again and getting Moyes confident and some selections, and maybe it'll kind of be a boot in the tail for Antonio to kind of step it up a little bit because
Hmm.
if they get him going too, then it looks like they got a pretty talented offense.
I think so too. And they finally have Ogbonna back, and he was a very good defender for them before the ACL injury. I think he's made the bench the last 2 games. I think he even played in one of their conference games. Um,
Yeah.
I'm thinking back to the couple times we've talked about West Ham. Even before the season started, we said they needed a third guy as someone to be an outlet to not necessarily just be a creator, but to be someone to pass the ball to, so he could turn and keep the ball. Because they have a
Yeah.
lot of guys that try to, I'm going to say loop it. But Suchek getting the ball on the turn, he's going to immediately pass it out wide or try to do a long ball up to Bowen, essentially. Rice as well. And this is a third guy now. You have some options, and so if you can get the ball into the
Yeah.
final third a little bit more, I mean, this guy's going to create. He's very skillful, and
Yeah.
so
There's
this
a
is
lot
a
of big teams wanting
this
them.
is a clever signing. Yeah, I mean, he's a
Mhm.
Champions League level player, and so
Yeah.
it's a statement signing, I think, from West Ham, showing intent as
Yeah.
well.
I
So
think so. Yeah, I think so too.
pretty
Oh, Kara too
pretty
has
exciting.
been pretty good too. He's a good signing. Kind of shore up that back line. I know he gave up a PK in the first game, but he was pretty good in this one too. So that's another good signing.
Yeah, in 2 games where he's had 90% passing as well. He's a good passer out of the
Ooh,
back. Yeah,
yeah, they need that too.
and
Oh, Villa though.
yeah, we do need to touch on Villa. I mean, I guess the positives are Leon Bailey, when he's come on, has looked pretty bright for them. I think he maybe should have started this game. Kamara has been
Uh-huh.
a good signing for them, but
Mhm.
it's kind of the same issues every single game. They lack width. I don't know the role Coutinho is supposed to have with Ings playing. Coutinho looks out of shape. When Budea comes on, I think they look better. But it's an issue because you also Digna and Cash are both guys that are really good at going forward and looping crosses in. But who are you aiming across to? It's not Danny Ings, and it's not really Ollie Watkins. I guess is okay in the air, but you don't really have a focal point either. And one thing I'm noticing is those two fullbacks aren't necessarily good at cutting in and kind of creating inside like kind of Cancelo does. And those are the only guys offering you any kind of width at all, anyways. So
Yeah.
it feels like the roster is kind of yeah, the roster makeup is kind of off. I mean, yeah. What are your thoughts on Villa?
Well, that's a good point because I guess playing the two strikers. is kind of like, we can get wide with them because we have one that can stay central and another one can drift, left or right. But like, if Luis has the ball or Cash has the ball and Watkins drifts left and picks it up, then who's like you said, Ings is going to be in the box and that's it. So that's a little bit of concern. And you want two strikers if you're starting them. You want both of them to be in the box. And if you look at the midfield, like you said, like Luis, like not that many people are going to get wide. So maybe they are missing, a really like. I mean, if you look at West Ham, like maybe they're missing a Cornet or a Bowen, someone like that could kind of unlock more of the offense. Or maybe the answer is on the bench because they do have a talented bench too. When Dia hasn't playing well, probably
Maybe
deserves to
Bailey.
start.
Bailey could have.
Bailey,
Yeah.
yeah, Bailey could have done it. Maybe Bailey instead of again
Well, I thought they were.
out wide.
I thought they were going to bring Sarr in, but apparently that. I don't think I like misread that. Apparently, like the deal like fell through at the last minute. I mean, because Sarr might have helped out with that as well. But I mean, one thing
Yeah.
I actually I took a picture of this and actually put it on my Twitter Twitter account. Is there were two times it happened in that first half, but actually I think it was multiple times. But anyways, Watkins would get the ball kicked to him, and then he would get the ball from wide and dribble up to the box, and he'd basically have three West Ham guys in front of him, and then there were like two West Ham guys by Danny Ings, so and no one else, no one, an entire like the camera's angle is actually pretty far back, so you can see outside the box from the 25-yard line and in. There's no one making a run to get into the box. Like, Coutinho's nowhere in sight. It's just
Mm.
Watkins and Ings in that picture, and so like what's Watkins
Yeah.
supposed to do in that? So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you think Gerard's on the hot seat possibly too with Villa, just because they do have a lot of talented players and they've only won one game and they've lost three. Do you think he's kind of on the hot seat too? Because Bournemouth has 3 points as well, and they just fired their coach. I know they're both differential. Bournemouth is -14, so it's a little different story there. But you got to think if they're willing to fire their coach, then Gerard's probably on the hot seat as well.
See, I think the problem for Rodgers is this isn't just a bad start to the season. If you go back to last season, so he took over and had a pretty good manager bump. But other even he ended up losing that City game.
Gerard, yeah.
At least Villa looked good in that City game. But
Hmm.
he had a really bad end of the season as well. So this is a
Yeah.
trend, and it doesn't seem like he's fixed it. So I do think Gerard should be
Mhm.
worried, to be honest. Yeah, especially when you hear names like
Yeah.
Pochettino being thrown around.
Ooh.
Um, I don't
Yeah.
I don't know if he'd
Gosh.
be interested in doing that kind of project, but before he went to PSG and Spurs, he was at Southampton, so he's been at a club
Hmm.
and built it up before, and this could maybe be
Yeah,
seen as a
that,
project
that
again,
wouldn't be a bad.
a project
Yeah, that
with
wouldn't be
owners
a
willing to
bad
spend.
big. Yeah, because I mean that wouldn't be a bad job because the owners are willing to spend, and
And they have a
you
good
have a lot
academy
of
system.
talented players. Yeah, yeah. I mean that wouldn't be a bad job. I think Pochettino would probably consider that. You would think. Yeah, but yeah, does he want to do a project? Who knows? But if they're willing to, the owners are willing to back it, then yeah, maybe it's worth it. And they do have talented players.
Because other than him, I know John Terry used to be the assistant coach before
Mm-hmm.
Gerard was there. I mean,
That's right.
maybe they would have interest in seeing him. Actually, I think Gerard even brought in the former Black Bull coach as an assistant, Neil
Oh,
Craigie.
yeah, he did. Yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe they'd like to give him a shot. I don't know, but
Ooh, where's John Terry at now?
it's not looking not looking good for Gerard. I'll put it that way. Um, and maybe that's a good thing for Liverpool fans because I know that a lot of them wanted to do this romanticism with like Frank Lampard, like what Chelsea fans had with
Mhm.
Frank Lampard at Chelsea, but that kind of blew up.
Yeah.
And I don't want Gerard to follow Klopp if it's going to be this way. I kind of want it to be someone that I guess has earned it, not necessarily just someone that a ex player that everyone loves, someone that
Yeah.
has the merit on coaching. So
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Where's Terry at now?
I don't know. Maybe did he
I don't
take
know
something in the
either.
championship? Burnley, maybe.
I think so. No, Burnley's what's God dang?
Well, no, not head coach. I like it. Like I think he maybe went assistant somewhere else.
Assistant. Okay. Yeah, because Burnley is
But company.
God dang it. Yeah, company. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm trying to look where he's at. I don't know.
All right.
Yeah, he left Villa in 2021. So
So while you look for that, we'll finish off with Leeds and Brighton. This one ends 1-0. again, wasn't necessarily too exciting. Then again, that's kind of Brighton. That's what Brighton does. Brighton is really they make it difficult for you to actually get a couple goals in them. So that result by United isn't aging too terrible. To start the season.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it really isn't.
I mean, they've only given up one goal, and it was that own goal that I think it was off a corner kick too. So that's I mean,
Mm,
their defense has been rock solid. If you play fantasy football, get some Brighton guys in there. Um,
absolutely.
but I mean, maybe we'll. One thing I wanted to say is it was going to be a big test for Marsh's Leeds, no matter what, to follow up what they did with Chelsea,
Mm,
to see if they could
yeah,
do the same thing versus a team like Brighton that does like to control the ball a little bit more, and they weren't able to necessarily do it. And so you
mm,
kind of wonder, do they have a plan B when all this pressing and energy doesn't work out, and they do actually need to kind of play some football together? And so far, it doesn't look like they do. But then again, no Bamford yet. Maybe Bamford back
yeah.
will help out with that. I don't know. Do you,
Mhm.
do you have any thoughts on either Leeds or Brighton?
Oh, I mean, Brighton has really impressed me. They have really put together a solid defense, and we talk about Casado, how good he's been, but Sanchez too, as goalie, has been really good. I would imagine like him and Rye are probably trying to force their way to be the Spanish number one going to the World Cup, and both of them have been fantastic. But I mean, I don't know. I think yeah, like you said, Leeds, it was always going to be a really tough game coming off, that rampant win. And I mean, Brian's a little different too because they are so good defensively. So it was kind of a letdown, but I think it's more of a case that Brighton's just really good this year, and they kind of just came in with a good game plan to shut down Leeds, especially like Aronson. And I do think Leeds will be fine because you got Raka and Adams. They have motors. They'll cover so much ground.
Hmm.
I think that's part of the reason why they'll be okay. But mainly, I'm just really just impressed with Brighton, and they've always been a scrappy team. They do have a good defensive base there to build off of. So yeah, I mean, I really like Graham Potter too. I still don't think they'll be where they are right now. They're really high up in the table, but they're a good team, and I wouldn't want to play them. Because you're going to find it hard to go defensively, and that's always something they can build on, and something that they can kind of be competitive just by having a good defense.
Well, it was only a couple years ago where um, I think like their XG basically like said, or their expected points, stat people that followed this said they should have been basically like sixth in the table when they were almost
Yeah.
fighting relegation. And then they turned around last season and they were comfortable. I think they finished, I don't know,
Mhm.
like 12th or something. They basically had they had another like down season, but then they finally turned it around in April. Jeremy said like until last year, Brighton had never won a game in April, which was kind of wild. Um,
That is wild.
in
Oh,
in in
jeez.
in, in the Premier League. And so
Yeah.
they've started maybe turn that around. I do kind of wonder if they have enough offensively. They apparently sold near what Mapai. I don't know if they trust
Mhm.
this Dennis Uzdov guy if something happens to Welbeck. One thing I'll say is that midfield pivot of Alexis McAllister and Casado has been really really good. And what's impressive to
Yeah.
me is McAllister is actually the guy that's kind of playing more defensive in respect. He's winning a lot of these duels. He's a really good presser. He's good on the turn when it comes to possession. And I thought this guy was basically a number 10. I thought he was a creative guy.
Mhm. Me
So
too.
he's showing a little adaptability in that spot. And Pascal Gross is off to a fantastic start for them. I think it's 3 goals in 4 games.
Yeah.
So
Oh, here's a little trivia question. Do you know how many goals Brighton has conceded so far this year through 4 matches?
yeah, it's one, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
one. It's let's see, it's best in the Premier League by 2 goals. So
Arsenal.
they have conceded less than Tottenham and Arsenal at
Yeah.
3. Yeah, and Newcastle has only conceded 4. But yeah, pretty impressive. They've only scored 5 goals, but that's to be expected. When you look at Welbeck's like their only striker, really.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, I mean, just having a good defense in the Premier League will get you. I mean, it gets you like mid-table. I feel like just having a good defense and
Really
the
does.
offense.
Yes.
You'll figure out some goals, maybe get goals from set pieces. Things like that. So yeah, it's just a good base for them to start picking up points in the Premier League with that good defense.
Because I think the last few years we've seen the teams that are closer to like the mid 30s or even 40s when it comes to conceding are really the teams fighting relegation or actually do get relegated.
Mm.
I think the
Yeah.
one shock last year was Leeds to stay up, but they almost did. Um, Beasley ball was fun on the eye, but it was also if you were a fan, heart attack,
Mm.
heart attack
Oh
waiting to
yeah.
happen.
Oh, they can see way too much.
So I guess that's maybe it. I mean, to quickly say, the Premier League does restart this week. So I guess it's today and Wednesday, and then they turn around and play also
Yeah.
Saturday and Sunday as well. And so
Yeah. Crazy.
I'm not really a fan of Liverpool playing late on Wednesday and then turning around and having the early game Saturday. Kind of
Mm.
iffy on that, but it is what it is. Um, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Though it is tough.
And we have the transfer deadline to end Thursday, so next week's show, if we are able to do it, is going to be painful. We'll see
Yeah,
how
it's
that
gonna
works.
be. Yeah, we're gonna have to condense it because it's gonna be like a 2.5 hour show.
A little bit. We'll try not to do that, even though I don't know how long I went over here. But once
You
again,
might just have to
Rex,
skip the boring games.
there we go. Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully, there was more 1-0s or 0-0s. There we go. Um, but yeah, Rex, thanks again for joining me, and I guess everything permitting, we'll try to be back and do a show next week around the same time. So anyone that
Yeah,
has
definitely.
checked out and listened all the way through, just I guess be on the lookout for that. We try to get it out, I guess every Tuesdays around midday, mid afternoon. So
Yeah, we got a decent amount of viewers per week, so keep it up. Hopefully, hopefully we kind of provide a little bit of tactical insight too that maybe some other pods don't provide. I'm hoping, and
we'll
then
go
obviously
we'll go into the clubs and
Arsenal and
players
Liverpool, we
when
got
like
you covered.
we'll go into the clubs and players when like NBC won't. We'll
Yeah,
we'll put it that
true.
way. All right. Well, Rex, thanks again. And you want to throw us out?
Yeah. Oh, actually, let's do it together
All right.
because I did last week. I don't want to do it.
All right.
All right, ready? 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, stay
You stay squatty.
squatting.
All
Here
right.
we go.
We'll work on that. But all right. And pause.